Hey, Boaz here with Next Pittsburgh. We're here on the roof of the Benedum Trees building. We're talking about historic skyscrapers here in Pittsburgh, and who better to talk with than a historic skyscraper expert, Mark Hauser. You write about historic skyscrapers, you present about them, and now you've taken us to a historic skyscraper.
Thanks for coming on my skyscraper tour, Boaz. This, as you said, is the Benedum Trees building, one of Pittsburgh's great classic first skyscrapers. And I think it's the only skyscraper built in Pittsburgh by a woman. It was originally called the McChesney Building after Caroline McChesney, and she was the wealthy daughter of a judge and a banker. And so she built this building in 1906 for stockbrokers and financiers and bankers because it was right next door to the Pittsburgh Stock Exchange when this 4th Avenue was the Wall Street of Pittsburgh.
And so what did that mean, like to be the Wall Street of Pittsburgh in the early 1900s?
Well, this was one of the most active stock exchanges, regional stock exchanges in the country. It had a trading volume that was behind only basically Philadelphia, Chicago, and of course New York. But there were a lot of companies here going in Pittsburgh, and so there were a lot of skyscrapers that came up and really changed the look of this city. It was a technological upheaval. I mean, it was a radical change to cities all across the country.
So what were some of the new special technological aspects of this building when it opened? What were some of the things people were really impressed with at the time?
Well, one of the things that made skyscrapers possible was elevators. Yeah. So that was something that enabled the country to have tall buildings. Before that, no one's going to walk up that many stairs. And of course, steel, which Pittsburgh was central in. Steel framing made skyscrapers possible. Before then, buildings could only be supported by their walls, so they looked like forts or castles.
And since we're up here, we've got this crazy view. Is there any other buildings that you want to point out to us from up here?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, architecture really defines a city. And so these buildings tell us about the people that built them and the era that they're built in. So, nothing looks more 1980s than PPG building. I mean, that building captures its era too. And it also is so central to the identity of Pittsburgh. I mean, if you think about it, architecture and buildings really are the first things we think of when we think about a city. They're how we know we've come home. So that's what this was at one time, one of the big buildings of Pittsburgh. And actually, if you look up 4th Avenue, you can see some of the other first skyscrapers of Pittsburgh.
And on that building over there, I think there are little heads over there at the top.
That's right. That might be my favorite Pittsburgh building, the Errett building. So they're like screaming heads. I don't know if they're supposed to be Greek mythology figures, or I kind of think they look like Indian chiefs, and the building's from the early 1900s, so it might be that. But that's the Errett building. James Errett, the bathtub king of Pittsburgh.
What, he made bathtubs? That's how he got rich?
Yes, he got rich making white enamel bathtubs and then selling them. There were bathtub factories all around Pittsburgh. There was a bathtub showcase on Penn Avenue, and that was bathtub headquarters. It's the company that became American Standard.
Oh, gosh, you hear about the glass, you hear about the steel, you don't hear about Pittsburgh's bathtub empire.
Absolutely not. That's an oversight we need to correct.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if we can peek inside too, because there's a pretty unique room right inside on the top floor.
Absolutely. It's one of the highlights of the tours I give. This is the main room for the Benter Foundation. Now, I told you this is the Benedum Trees building. Benedum and Trees got rich in the oil business. Bill Benter made his fortune also in gambling. So he is a statistics whiz from the South Hills. So when you look around the decor here, you see a lot of Asian and Chinese style decoration, and that's because of the time that he spent in Asia, in China, and in Hong Kong. So yeah, this is all brand new. This is not how the building originally looked on the top floor. It's tough in the early days of skyscrapers to top floor is where all the heat is, right? Your attic is hot, and before air conditioning, you couldn't really put people on the top floors. Sometimes there were observation decks, but no one wanted an office here.
But there are some parts of the building that you sort of do get the early 1900s vibes in.
Oh, for sure. Hey, let's take a look at the lobby, because that's one of the best, and they just recently renovated it. So it looks like it did back in 1906 when this building opened. Everything you see here, the marble, the ceilings, the fixtures, is all original or a reproduction of what this looked like in 1906 when it opened. I mean, this was a cover story in Architectural Digest. This building is swanky.
I guess it makes sense. This is Wall Street, so it's like they wanted to show their wealth a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the point of a skyscraper back then was an investment. You attract these high-profile clients with the nicest office space in the city.
I like how everything, I mean, even mundane things are just like gorgeous. Like this, U.S. mail letterbox is like a beautiful piece of art that who knows how many craftsmen contributed to.
Since skyscrapers in 1906 in Pittsburgh were so new, it was kind of universally agreed that they should look like elegant Roman and Greek temples. So they use all of this decorative style from the, historical and classical sources. So when I'm giving tours, I really like to take people down this street because you get a sense of what Pittsburgh's business district looked like before skyscrapers.
Yeah.
So when buildings were only 4 or 5 stories tall, because that's as far as anyone's going to walk up a flight of steps. And then you get really a good idea of what an imposition and what a shock it would have been. Take a look at this. 1901 is when this Barrett building is going up.
It just is towering over all those other buildings.
18 stories.
Wow.
So you imagine how much that blew people's mind. So this is Pittsburgh's best Art Deco skyscraper, the Koppers building, built for Andrew Mellon, part of the big Mellon family of companies. And it is a stunner. You want to come inside and take a look at this lobby? This building's 100 years old almost, but it still has that sense of modern. Look at the zigzag patterns there in the light fixture. And this was meant to be a modern look after people got tired of that old Greek temple looking skyscraper. I have a new book called High Rises Art Deco with 100 of the best Art Deco skyscrapers all across the country. Pittsburgh and almost 50 cities have been doing it with an amazing artist in Philadelphia named Chris Heitha, who uses a drone to take pictures of these buildings. And the Koppers is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
One of the reasons is what I'm about to show you up on the 29th floor, their balcony.
Oh, wow. What a cool view. This is like completely different.
This is a view of Pittsburgh that you seldom see. You can see all the way down into the Strip District from here. You can see the Cathedral of Learning, another great Art Deco skyscraper just over the hill there. And Pittsburgh's newest skyscraper going up right there in the Hill District.
What is this one?
I want to say...
Is it a bank? It's like a bank, right?
And I wanted to see which one is First National. Let's take a look behind us here at Pittsburgh's tallest skyscraper. That's the U.S. Steel building, right? And that was, when it was built, one of the 10 tallest buildings, the 8th tallest building in the world. Wow. Within years, it started sliding down that scale. Want to take a guess? What's the rank of this building in the terms of tallest in the world?
I don't know, 75th?
It's not even 300th.
Oh, wow.
So this building is a nothing right now in terms of skyscrapers, but it still looks tall to you and me because it's the tallest thing here. So tall is relative.
Well, I love this view. You can see the 3 bridges. You can see a stadium over here. It's amazing.
It's one of the best in Pittsburgh. And it's off limits most of the time. Yeah. So it's nice to get a chance to come up here and show you around.
Well, thank you so much for the tour. And people, you can go on a tour with Mark as well. You do them often in downtown Pittsburgh. Where can people find the latest information?
That's right. You can, thanks. You can find that at my website, which is Houser Talks, Houser Talks, TALKS.com, or antiqueskyscrapers.com, if that's easier to remember.
Gosh, well, thanks so much, Mark. This was a delight, and I highly recommend going on a tour with Mark because he knows everything there is to know about antique skyscrapers.
Thanks, Boaz. It's been great.